Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome to WION Live Broadcast with me, Susan Tehrani, live from New York City. First, let's get you up to speed with this hour's headlines. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and his deputy Shah Mahmood Qureshi have been given a 10-year jail term for leaking state secrets. The sentencing comes just 2 weeks before Pakistan votes in the national elections. Another win for the Indian Navy. Indian Navy ship Sharada aids Sicili's defense forces and Sri Lankan Navy to intercept a pirate vessel that had hijacked a Sri Lankan flagged fishing trawler off the Somali coast. All 3 pilots suspended. All 6 fishing crew are safe. Maldives opposition leader Qasem Ibrahim calls on the Maldivian president Mohammad Mazua to formally apologize to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the people of India. Farmers in France block major highways in and around Paris for a second day. They are protesting for better crop prices and loosening regulations. Protests ongoing in Belgium and Germany as well. The International Olympic Committee says it will hold a dignified medal ceremony for the team figure skating event from the 2022 Winter Olympics. Russia had been stripped of the gold medal after Kamila Valieva was hit with a 4-year ban by the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The U.S. officials are confirming that Americans failed to stop a deadly attack on their military outpost in Jordan on Sunday. 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in the attack that also injured 40 people. The U.S. officials claim the damage was due to a drone mix-up. According to them, the enemy drone approached its target at the same time a U.S. drone was returning to base. The returning U.S. drone led to confusion over whether the incoming drone was a friend or a foe. The U.S. military is now investigating to determine why the nearly 350 troops at the base Tower 22 could not stop the enemy drone. The U.S. military has identified 3 casualties as Specialist Kennedy Landon Sanders, Breonna Alexandria Moffett, and Sergeant William Jerome Rivers. President Biden had pledged retaliation against the attack. The incident raised questions on the American military's defense against the Iran-backed militia in West Asia. But the White House said that the U.S. is not looking for a war with Iran or even to escalate tensions.
We are not looking for a war with Iran. We are not looking to escalate the tensions any more than they already have been escalating. In fact, everything we've done has been designed to try to de-escalate those tensions. That said, this was a very serious attack. It had lethal consequences. We will respond, and we'll respond appropriately.
According to the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, the current conflict in West Asia is so perilous that it has not had a parallel even as far back as 50 years ago.
I think it's very important to note that this is an incredibly volatile time in the Middle East. I would argue that we've not seen a situation as dangerous as the one we're facing now across the region since at least 1973, and arguably even before that. And that is the environment in which we're operating.
Iran has so far denied direct involvement in the attack. At the U.S. base in Jordan, Tehran says groups in the region do not take orders from Iran for their actions. According to experts, to avenge the drone strike on its troops, U.S. can escalate its strikes on Iran's axis of resistance to stress that it cannot afford greater escalation. Experts also believe top military officials say the U.S. could target the Revolutionary Guard or a top military site inside Iran. Another option for the U.S. could be to target Iranians and Iranian hardware outside Iran's borders. A variant would be an attack on Iranian warships supporting the Houthis in the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aden. China, meanwhile, has warned the U.S. against a cycle of retaliation in the already tense region. It has called on all parties to maintain restraint and calm. All right, to discuss more on this, we are being joined by Lester Munson. He's Senior Fellow, National Security Institute. He's joining me live now from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Lester, for joining me. You know, we hear President Biden constantly talk about calling on Iran and its proxies to not do this. You know, play those sound bites. He constantly says don't, and don't again. But apparently this has not deterred anyone from attacking the United States outside of the country. What are your thoughts?
Indeed, you are correct. Urging Iranian-backed militias not to attack the United States hasn't worked at all. It is clear the Biden administration, the president, needs to respond forcefully to what has been going on here. 3 Americans died in this most recent attack. There have been over 150 attacks on U.S. facilities in the region over the last few months. The pace of these attacks is not diminishing. If anything, it's increasing. And I think it is clear that the United States needs to take a completely different approach to stop these kinds of things from happening. We're seeing it with the Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and elsewhere. We're seeing it in Iraq, in Syria, in other areas in the region. So it is time for a change in the U.S. approach. The president needs to be much stronger in his responses to these attacks against the United States and the U.S. and U.S. allies.
What about Iran? Iran has denied any direct involvement in these attacks against U.S. forces, but it's also denied direct involvement when it comes to what the Houthis are doing in the Red Sea. But it's, you know, public knowledge that Iran does back financially these groups and these rebel groups. Do you think that if President Biden decides to take another approach, then Iran would retaliate in a way that, you know, would put more American lives in danger? It's not that the United States shouldn't do this. I'm just wondering if you think that Iran would retaliate in a way that once again would cause an administration like the administration to pull back.
Well, I think it's clear that Iran is lying about its role in these attacks. These are Iranian-backed militias, several of them, that appear to be acting in concert and at the direction of Tehran to attack U.S. and allied forces in the region. There's no doubt that Iran is responsible for these attacks. It's critical that the administration take a different approach. Their approach of rhetorical responses and little pinpricks back against Iranian-backed proxies is not effective. The U.S. needs to actually respond more forcefully than Iran has attacked the United States. The U.S. enjoys overwhelming military superiority here. It is time to use that. American lives have been lost. It is time that the United States shows Iran that it can do what it needs to do in the region to protect itself. So this previous policy of non-escalatory rhetorical responses was not effective. That is clear. President Biden needs to change his approach, and indeed he's under pressure from Congress and the American people to change that. It is clear his current policy is not effective.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, we'll be watching very closely, especially in the days and hours to come, to see how President Biden decides to move forward with this incident and the tragic loss of American lives once again overseas. Lester Munson, thank you so much for joining me on WION, and I do look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Well, Hamas is examining the official proposal for a hostage release and ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war. Israel has agreed to the proposal that has been suggested by the U.S., Egypt, Qatar after their talks in Paris on Sunday. So far, Hamas has maintained that it seeks a permanent ceasefire and will only free the hostages when Israeli troops completely withdraw from Gaza. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh says the group will deliver its response on the proposal. The group has been invited to Cairo for further discussions, and reports say the new deal suggests a 45-day pause in the fighting in exchange for 35 to 40 hostages in the first phase. Some 100 to 250 Palestinian prisoners will be released for every one hostage. That would be followed by subsequent release in the exchange for the extension of the truce and more Palestinian prisoners releases for each hostage. Reports say that Israel is willing to be flexible on the length of the pause in fighting, the number of prisoners released, and the amount of humanitarian aid to be allowed, but it has not agreed to end the war. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has expressed hope for the deal, saying that, quote, very important productive work has been done. However, U.S. officials have acknowledged more needs to be done.
Thank you.
There's no reason that whatever our response is, there's no reason for that to have an impact on our ability to try to get these hostages released. And as I said last week, so I can say today, those discussions are ongoing. We believe they have been constructive and are moving in a good direction. Don't want to sound sanguine here. There's a lot of work left to be done. We don't have an imminent deal to speak to, but based on the discussions we've had over the weekend and in recent days, we feel it's moving in a good direction.
Meanwhile, Qatar, which is part of the mediation process, has expressed concern over the war spillover and its effect on talks. A top prime minister said that he hoped U.S. retaliation for the drone attack on its troops in Jordan would not undercut progress in the deal.
We are seeing this building up, unfortunately, in the last 3 months and a half. I hope that nothing would undermine the efforts that we are doing or jeopardize the process, yet it will definitely have an impact on it, and will, one way or another, it will have an impact on the regional security, and we hope that things get contained and not to get escalated beyond control.
Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley was reportedly a target of 2 swatting attempts within days around the New Year's time. In the last incident that took place on January 1st, someone allegedly called authorities and said that Haley shot her daughter and was threatening to harm herself. Swatting attacks is a prank call when an unknown person calls authorities to prompt a response to a fake emergency. Haley faced another swatting attack 2 days prior to the January 1st call, when a man lied to authorities and said that he shot a woman at her home. The two incidents prompted local law enforcement to respond to Haley's residence in Kiowa Island. The former UN ambassador was not at home either time. Authorities say they met a caregiver for Haley's parents at the home and confirmed the calls were hoaxes. Responding to the incident, Nikki Haley has said that it goes to show the chaos that's surrounding the United States right now. There has been a concerning rise in swatting incidents targeting American politicians, as well as judiciary in recent weeks and months.
I'm not pro-life because the Republican Party tells me to be. I'm pro-life because my husband is.
In what comes as a second case of a killing of an Indian student in the United States within only a week, Neil Acharya, a Purdue University student who was reported missing on social media on Sunday, has been confirmed dead. The unfortunate news of Acharya's death comes after a 25-year-old Indian student, Vivek Saini, was hammered to death by a drug addict in the United city of Lithuania on January 6th. In a Monday email to the University Computer Science Department, the interim CS head Chris Clifton told students and faculty of Acharya's death, and on Monday, Neil's parent posted his missing plea on social media platform X, which stated that he was last seen by the Uber driver who dropped him off at Purdue University. Meanwhile, in another incident, a 25-year-old Indian student, Vivek Saini, was hammered to death by a drug addict in the U.S. city of Lithuania on January 16th. Notably, Saini had been helping the accused drug addict Julian Faulkner for 2 days by providing him food and shelter. The Indian student had recently earned an MBA degree in the United States and was striving for a job while working at a store as a part-time clerk, where he gave food and shelter to drug addict Faulkner. The shocking incident took place as Saini was shutting the store for days. He requested Julian Faulkner to leave or face police intervention. Upon hearing this, Julian attacked Saini by hacking him 50 times in the head with a hammer. Upon arrival at the crime scene, the police saw Julian Faulkner standing over Vivek's body. The horrific murder that has stunned the people of Georgia was also caught on camera. Vivek Saini was a young student from Indian state of Haryana and held a Bachelor of Technology degree. He had migrated to the United States 2 years ago to pursue an MBA degree. Tech billionaire Elon Musk's Neuralink company has successfully implanted one of its wireless brain chips into human for the first time. Musk has said that initial results directed promising neuron spikes or nerve impulses and that the patient is recovering well. The company's goal is to connect human brains to computers. It says it wants to help tackle complex neurological conditions. A number of rival companies have already implanted similar devices. Neuralink was given permission to test the chip on humans by the FDA in May. It was a critical milestone for the company after earlier struggles to gain approval. The green light led to the start of a 6-year study, during which a robot is being used to surgically place a thread thinner than the human hair onto a part of the brain that controls movement and tension. The company says that these threads allow its experimental implant to record and transmit brain signals wirelessly to an app. The app then decodes how the person intends to move. Musk has said that Neuralink's first product would be called telepathy. It would enable the control of your phone or computer by just thinking.
So we want to show people, that most importantly, that this, you're thinking about sort of buying a battery. What does this provide?